Whoa, we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Don't you know? It is your favorite Jackson, I presume. I mean, I would hope. If I'm not, it's okay. I understand. But joining me today is my host and co-host, Peter, of Gonna
Hello.
Go For It fame.
Yeah. By the way, so you're my favorite Jackson because I get to work for you.
Oh,
And if
shucks.
if I say otherwise, I might be fired. But no, I'm just kidding. But if you are the
I don't
favorite
actually run this
Jackson,
channel.
I think that there's one guy who bitched for a long time that he wasn't in the intro, and now he's in the intro, and he hasn't been on your channel since. So
Well,
maybe
his
he.
name is not Jackson.
No, but he does a show. Jackson does
With
Jackson.
Jackson. Well, okay, but the other Jackson is called Bad Jackson.
Oh, okay.
So,
so that automatically disqualifies him already. Okay.
So let's see who. Oh, and we also have our favorite Nestlig. He is also here with us.
Hello, hello.
Armed,
Welcome back.
2 weeks.
armed and
Been 2
ready for
weeks.
battle.
Yeah, he's prepared to combat creationism.
Which
yeah, it's been
which we
let's
discussed
see.
off
Yeah.
screen. Apparently, is getting necessary again.
Oh yeah, so West Virginia. I think they did this a few months ago, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But they are trying.
They did it on February 14th. There's a thing
Yes.
going on February 14th. What is it? Oh, it has to do with this flower, Valentine.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So
that was a nice
West
present.
Virginia is trying to pass another law to allow the teaching of intelligent design in the public school science classroom called SB 619. So yay! Because as Nestle astutely pointed out, the only way they can get intelligent design in the
Oop.
Uh-oh. You're froze again. You froze for
No,
a
no,
moment.
no, no, you're
Yeah.
back. You're back. You're back. You're back.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. So yeah. So the only way that these guys can get their stuff into the classroom is through legislation, because they know they can't win in the lab. They cannot win in, I guess, the public domain either.
Or the scientific
Funny
community.
enough. Well, right. They can't win in the lab. They can't win the scientific community. They can't. They've not convinced most people. Funny enough, intelligent design, like proper, is a very, very small minority of anti-evolution people. Young Earth creationists are far larger as a group than intelligent design advocates. So yeah,
I'm
pretty sad.
wondering if we're
it's
going to
pretty
get a
much
new book
yeah.
with better word processing done this time in order to camouflage the fact that it's a creationist book.
Well, we can only hope. I mean, their technology takes a long time to evolve, as Kent Hogan likes to say.
Yeah.
So
Who by the way whacked off Arn again last night?
He really enjoys doing that, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's yeah.
He probably does that more than anybody else at this point, I think. So,
yeah, I mean, it's
let's
yeah,
see, who do we have in the side chat.
Immutable Destiny said should have seen Rebecca's stream earlier. I'm subscribed, so I clicked on it, and then I saw
That's Bread of Life.
I saw a familiar face popping up, and I thought, nope, not going to let. I had a good day, not going to let it ruin by the guy who thinks that Noah brought molecules on the ark or cells. I forgot.
I don't know. Let's see. We got Nan, Jamie E, and Immutable Destiny so far. Welcome.
Savage Cobra and Majestic P-Back have also joined.
Oh, they did join. Okay, I didn't scroll down. And Capo 1611.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. I don't watch Rebecca as i.e. Bread of Life because Dapper and I talked to her one time, and that was one of the most frustrating conversations I've ever had. So I will never watch her streams. You will never catch me doing that.
What really? So I feel kind of responsible for that because I was the one who set that whole thing up, and what the people didn't get to know, and maybe you don't want to share this, but I'm perfectly happy because I set it up, so I want to share this. Is that you accidentally sent her a wrong paper?
Oh, the wrong paper. Yes, I did.
Whereas we had set on a topic, and because you accidentally sent her the wrong paper, she didn't want to talk about the topic that we agreed on, and only wanted to talk about that particular paper.
Well, I was fine with that.
Hold on. While during the show, bringing up all kinds of different topics herself, but you weren't allowed to provide a different topic, which I thought was inherently dishonest, and I was shocked to see that happen, to be honest.
Your goalpost has to stay in place. My goalpost can move wherever it needs to be.
My goalpost has wheels and a V8 and a V8 engine.
My thing wasn't even that so much. It was like, I sent her the wrong paper, but as soon as she said that and I realized that, I was like, okay, that's fine. We can just talk about the paper I sent you. And she went on for like 5 minutes about like, well, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this. I was like, I don't care. Just we'll talk about the paper I sent you. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like she just kept going on and on and on. I was like, oh my God, I don't care.
And I don't get that.
Was this recorded or live stream?
Yeah, it's on this channel. Yeah.
Yeah, and the sad thing is,
sorry, I missed it. On which channel is that?
On Jackson's.
Jackson Wheat.
Yeah.
If you check the 2022 playlist, it should be on that one. That was last year. Yeah. So we were supposed to discuss the paper by Matt Herron et al. 2019 on how he subjected these algae to predation and they became multicellular, but instead I accidentally sent her the paper by William Ratcliffe et al. 2020 or 2021, something like that, where they bred unicellular yeast to be multicellular. So they just kept breeding it, and not just multicellular, but actually macroscopic. And then we had William Ratcliffe on, and I got to talk to him about that. Sorry. So that was the paper we ended up talking about. And so the funny thing was, by the end of that conversation, we finally get all the way through, because she made a bunch of notes and she wanted to talk about this and this and this thing. So we hammer all of it out, finally get all the way through, and she accepts the paper. She's like, okay. And we're like, good. And she goes, but do you think that's really how evolution works? It's like, yes. Yeah. So it was one of the most frustrating conversations I've ever had.
Speaking about how evolution works, Jackson, have you found the camera in your room yet?
The one that's that you were using to spy on me. That one.
So was. People say there's nothing, no such thing as a coincidence. But so for those who want to have a heads up for next Monday, I shot Jackson a DM earlier this week and said, I get to meet Jerry Coyne on Monday. And Jackson replied, that is weird. I'm holding his book.
I was rereading a section of Why Evolution is True. And so I'm just flipping through it and I'm listening to music and stuff, and then I just get a message from Peter, hey, I'm gonna have Jerry Coyne on. And I was like,
oh no, not me. Really? I get to meet him because obviously people like that don't come on my channel. So
that's right.
on Arn's
I get
channel,
to meet Jerry Coyne, and so I was just like, that's weird.
Yeah. So those who follow Arn, this Monday, and it's going to be 5 p.m. my time. That should translates to 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time, or 11 a.m. Eastern, or 8 a.m. Pacific, or 1 a.m. Brisbane. I mean, you can look it up.
I think that'll be a fun conversation. I'll definitely have to catch that after you guys have it. My only issue with Coin is that so I read Speciation, which is his textbook on speciation. It's really good. It's got lots of really cool examples of speciation and all the different mechanisms and ways by which it can happen. I highly recommend it. Highly recommend the book. My issue with it is he has a section where he argues that species are real, that they are real entities. It's not just a construct for human convenience.
Right.
And he says, like, yeah, they are real. Otherwise, what would you be talking about with regard to speciation? And then he's like, except we don't have any particular way to define what species are. And then he gives this really good quote from a geneticist who's like, yeah, species aren't.
We can talk about countries without countries being a objective feature of the terrain.
Right. Well,
Right.
the funny thing is, he gives a quote by I think it's a geneticist. I think his name is John Brookfield, in which Brookfield says, yeah, the species concepts aren't really real. It doesn't matter which one you pick, just pick one and use it consistently. And I was like, why would you put this in your book if you're saying species are real? I don't understand.
In all fairness, it is kind of hilarious that Neslik brings up, we can talk about countries. Both Neslik and I are from the Netherlands. Allegedly. And as everyone will know, that people will refer to it as Holland, but there are two Hollands in one of the Netherlands, because there are also two Netherlands. There are 4 countries, there are a few cities, and all of that is the Netherlands. And the climate is well, what do you call it? A seaside climate, but also tropic, because obviously the Netherlands spans the entirety of the globe. If you go in 2 directions and you meet halfway, you'd still be in the Netherlands. It's weird.
Smitty makes a good point.
It's about as good as talking about species. That's what I'm trying to say.
You're right.
Yeah.
Does Coin also like try to ignore like the relevancy of like neutral evolution? Like he thinks like, oh well, it's nothing special like that. Like
in Why Evolution is True, he just kind of flips it off in like a single page. He's like, yeah, neutral evolution, it might happen a little bit, but it's whatever.
It tends to be like if you look at the very gray-haired professors, they tend to only focus on natural selection, and that's it.
Coin. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but Coin actually wrote a paper in like the early 2000s about why Evo Devo hasn't made much headway as a science, which was super weird to write in the early 2000s. It was very strange.
I think some of the like the old guard they were like in the neo-Darwinian of like the 50s, 60s, like that. Yeah.
Well, like him and Dawkins are like the same tradition, right? They're both about the same age, but Dawkins is like fine with Evo Devo. He's apoplectic if you mention like epigenetics though. So don't do that. Because he's like, oh, it's neo-Lamarckism. It's like, but it's really not though. It's really not. But anyways, but people have their hangups. Smitty makes a good point. Wonder if he has all his savings in gold because fiat currency is fake. I mean that's the same sort of concept, right? Like money, there's no objective currency, right? You just make a currency and you apply it consistently, right? It's the same
except for ATP.
Do what?
Except for ATP.
Oh,
that's
the objective. The energy currency of the cell. Yeah, you're so funny. I bet you do stand up on the weekends. But yeah, so like species are the same way. Whichever way you want to define species doesn't really matter. Just pick a consistent definition, right? I mean, obviously there are some definitions that are going to be more precise than others, but as long as you use them relatively consistently, that's really what's important.
And sometimes you cannot do that. Like with fossil species, you have to you can only rely on like the phenotype. So you say like, oh, if they look different enough, then we can say do new species, which is more of a practical definition than an objective definition, because it could have been very easily the case that there are many species or different species or like the same species if we had a time machine, for example. Yeah, right. It's
right.
It's really
things
difficult.
like cryptic species, like with different species of frogs, where they all look like exactly the same, but they differ in their song. So like they're higher pitched or lower pitched, or they do different little trills or whatever, and that's what makes them different. Like they have their genes, and that's what's conferring that difference in the song, and that's how you tell them apart. Not because I mean, maybe they have like some small morphological difference or something, but you're not going to get that with fossils. And so
you have also like ontogenic stage, like sometimes a juvenile can look very differently from the adult, and it's especially the case with the dinosaurs. Curlier, like with mammals, it's very straightforward, but with the dinosaurs have a very comparatively very drastic ontogenetic niche partitioning. Like the juveniles were often very ecologically very different from their adults.
Right? Wasn't there a paper on that?
Because
wasn't there a paper on like why there are no medium-sized theropods?
Right,
I think that was a paper. Yeah.
Yes.
Because the juvenile like tyrannosaur would fill the role of the medium-sized theropod.
Right.
Yeah, which is just
imagine a gigantic cat, and the juveniles play the role of the lions, basically.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it makes sense because like dinosaurs lay eggs, so every dinosaur has to begin as a very small creature, but with mammals they can more or less start out pretty big, like an elephant baby pretty much is one of the biggest animals already when it's born.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a very different developmental.
I mean, Leslie, you know why it's different with dinosaurs, right? Because if it wasn't, they wouldn't have fitted on the ark. That's how God created it.
That's very true. Shout out to all the times Kent Hovind used that as an argument.
Yeah.
Also, have you seen the debate between Dave and Tour? Yeah.
Oh no. Okay. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about it.
No, sorry about that.
All right. Moving on.
I agree.
All right. So moving on. So last time we did about half of a video, which was a series of shorts put out by Genesis Apologetics, which were hilarious because at the end the teacher was playing baseball.
Yeah.
Which is the appropriate reaction to the students that he has,
and is now the thumbnail.
And he is now the thumbnail. Yes, because you made that, Peter, and it looks very nice. Thank you.
And I made a fake Genesis Apologetics logo by ripping off the Andy Warhol art that seemed to line up like what they had in their logo. So it
looks
together
really good.
nicely.
I like it.
Yeah,
it does. And so what we're going to do is basically the same thing we did last time. We're going to play them like short by short. So we'll just play the whole thing, let it run all the way through, then we'll pause it mid.
It didn't entirely work last time. It didn't entirely work last time, but so
it worked well enough. Did you guys cover the Abio one? Abio what? Immutable. What are you referring to?
Are they going to go into like the Abiogenesis topics next, or
maybe? I don't.
They
don't remember.
They have recurring
ones in particular last time.
Yeah, they have recurring topics as well. So they made a 1 minute video and then thought, nah, we could do better, and then made a whole 1 minute video again, just rehashing the exact same thing. So yeah.
So. All right, we ready? Ready to jump into it?
Ready. Let's do it.
All right, let's do.
So, wait, they didn't find a single one?
Technically, they haven't found any complete Homo habilis skeletons, not even close to complete. Even though Homo habilis, or handyman, is one of the better known icons of human evolution, they found about 100 bone fragments they assigned to Homo habilis.
But in our textbooks, in our museums, and even online, they're shown looking complete. They have human eyes and eye whites, which apes don't have. And then down later on in our textbook, it says that Homo habilis was becoming human because they used stone tools nearby. But how do we know if those were used by them or rather used on them?
We don't. They have found thousands of bones from other butchered animals in the same area. They even found a 12-foot circular hut foundation in the same rock bed.
That, to me, sounds like modern humans were living there, eating and butchering animals like Homo habilis. I don't think they were evolving.
Okay, first of all, I've never heard the hut claim. I don't know. I don't know about that one. But the others we found, the paleontologists have found like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of specimens of Homo erectus. It's not like 100 fragments. It's like hundreds of.
This is Homo habilis, I believe. They are not.
Did they say
talking about
habilis
Homo
or erectus?
Yeah.
They say habilis or erectus?
Yeah, they said habilis.
I think they said. Yeah.
Okay,
Habilis,
well, okay, maybe that's true for habilis. But so the stone tool thing is that the tools overlap in time with habilis, and there is no evidence, none whatsoever, of anatomically modern humans being in that time period. Now, of course, they would just say, "Oh, well, radiometric dating assumptions," which is stupid, but whatever.
I have a far better argument, Jackson. So the guy said it.
But also,
they used the tools on Homo habilis, so they slaughtered them, and then modern man just carried on and left the bones of Homo habilis behind, which is...
So the way we can refute that argument is pretty easy. If the bones weren't butchered, if they don't have the actual marks of the tools in the bones, why would we assume that they were butchered, right? Because we know what... I mean, we can find evidence in the fossil record of animals getting butchered by tool-wielding apes, right? We know what that looks like. So to say, well, how do we know Homo habilis wasn't the one that got butchered?
We've got even better evidence.
You find the marks on the bones?
We've got even better evidence after we find Ötzi in Europe, who carried, among other things, his tools. Because why would you travel from one place to another and then start making all new tools when you already have them?
Yeah,
they would take their tools with them. And when we found Ötzi, he had pretty much everything on him that he used in his daily life. But we knew from that point at least that they weren't leaving tools behind. That would just be stupid.
Well, some cultures move like seasonally. Some nomadic cultures move seasonally, so they leave stuff where they're going to return, like next year, to the same spot. So and again, that's just some would leave like, okay, well, we're going to be here next year at this time, so we'll make some tools now, leave them here. Then when we come back the next season, we'll just have them again, and here they are. And again, that's fine. But would you
leave them in the same place as the waste of your butchering? Like, like put them in the same pile. Like, I just ate this, and now all the bones are left, so I will put the bones alongside my kitchen tools. Right?
Yeah. The other thing about it was so. They actually didn't even argue anything about the morphology. They just said we don't have a lot of Homo habilis, which, okay. And the fact that we do have Homo habilis specimens, and the fact that they are morphologically, transitional between us anatomically modern Homo sapiens and Australopiths, that's really the important point. Right? Like, it doesn't matter how many fragments we have, as long as we have the bones that actually indicate the transitional nature of the fossils, that's what matters. And they didn't say anything about that.
Right, it's just the tools. It's apparently the issue. Like I don't know why the tools is necessarily the focus, but anyway.
Well, it's kind of like it's like the ear muscle thing, right? Like, well, the ear muscles don't actually work. Anyways, look at this other thing.
Yeah,
we're gonna spend all this time talking about the inner ear.
There's a squirrel over there. Yeah.
Right. So that was silly. The thing about the whites of the eyes is just a lie. Like
again,
it's so easy to refute. Just type in like gorilla eye whites or chimpanzee eye whites, or like it's so stupid. It means they didn't bother to do 5 seconds of Googling. It's that easy to refute.
All those pictures have been faked by NASA.
By NASA? Okay.
Yeah.
That's a flat Earth reference.
It's a psyop.
I have heard that argument, literally, made by Creationists.
No, I believe it.
But NASA faked the pictures.
Yeah.
Because that's what NASA would do, right? I mean,
that's true.
Yeah.
So wait, Immutable. So did you, when you said you have thoughts on it, or are you just going to put those in the side chat, or what did you mean? But anyway, okay. Well, is there anything else you guys want to add on this? It was.
Oh no, I think we can move on. Yeah, so some of the same points as the eye white. Yeah, I think we got it.
Okay, all right.
One of my pet peeves is when they bring up, but they didn't find a full skeleton. No, they found multiple skeletons.
Right.
Probably also not complete, but overall, we may have pretty much all of the bones of that particular species, so we can make a complete skeleton just by comparing the bones.
They overlap, right?
Yes. I mean,
like one skeleton has the pieces that the other skeleton doesn't, and so you can be like, oh well, clearly this piece was right here on this other one, because that's how bilateral symmetry works. Crazy, right? Crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they were very asymmetrical apes.
They're like flatfish. Yeah, they were the ape equivalent of flatfish. Yeah.
Well, there was a creationist who asked me, and I forgot the name of the first one. The guy who plays a leading role in Harry Potter as one of the guys in the bank. I forgot what species they
goblins?
Are. Yes. So
the not Jewish goblins.
Yeah. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So there was this famous British actor who plays a lot of those roles, and he said if you find his skeleton along with what was it called, Andrew the Giant, or what was his name?
Oh, Andre the Giant.
Andre the Giant. Would people thousands of years from now still think they're the same species? Yes, probably, because the way the skeleton is constructed, the way it's shaped, is still the same between someone who's very short and someone who's very tall. I think the scientists would be able to distinguish whether or not they were the same species.
Right. So, I mean, paleopathology is a thing, right? It's an entire field. Yes. Paleontologists and archaeologists can look at skeletons and be like, "Oh, they had some unusual bone pathology or something."
Jamie E got it. Warwick Davis.
Yeah,
that was his.
Right. Also, Immutable Destiny would like to. He would like to join us when the Abio one comes around. Is that possible, Peter?
Yeah, we have a free spot. So.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Immutable, if you. The Jewish goblin. Yes, there was even like a Star of David on the floor in the original what's the last one? Deathly Hallows Part 2. Like originally there was a Star of David on the floor because
in the movie
J.K. Rowling is not subtle with her anti-Semitism.
Oh.
Yeah,
no,
she's not subtle at all.
Which I mean, she probably stole that idea, because if you go to the Vatican, it is really weird to see that many swastikas in churches. I don't know if other people know this. And in Denmark, you see them outside on the churches. There's a lot of them.
Well, I would suspect just to like throw, just to be generous. Maybe I don't know if she doesn't deserve it, but to be generous, I think she was intended to be a very subtle allegory, but it doesn't quite work, in my opinion.
Well, she is now a very well-known TERF, so I wouldn't put anything.
Anyways, moving on. Yeah, moving on.
Yeah, so if Immutable wants to join, you should either shoot me a message on Discord or shoot you a message so you can post a link.
Immutable, whichever of those works.
But let us know in the chat if you send us a message, because we are looking at different screens, so we might not see it right away.
Yeah, just send it to Peter. Probably via Discord. That's probably going to be the easiest way. Okay. Alrighty, you ready?
Continue.
Yep.
Millions of years of human evolution can fit inside of a shoebox?
Well, yes, but I need to clarify.
Oh my God,
you said
again?
The Lucy fossil was the best example of human evolution from around 4 million years ago. But what about the other million years, say 2 or 3 million years?
Well, the fossil record
actually a really
is
good question.
Quite sparse during that period. National Geographic says fossils attributed to Homo in the period 2 to 3 million years ago are exceedingly rare. And the director of the Institute of Human Origins at ASU even said you could put all the bones in a shoebox and still fit a good pair of shoes.
It makes me wonder how many bones altogether supposedly show humans evolved.
According to Dr. Tattersall, the curator of anthropology department at the American Museum of Natural History, he says this: you could fit all of them into the back of a pickup truck if you didn't mind how much you jumbled everything up.
That's weak, really weak.
Again, what is the deal with them being like, there aren't a lot of bones, therefore it means like, what does this argument even amount to? You have to have a certain number of transitional fossils for something to be considered transitional? Like, is that what they're arguing? I don't understand. I don't get the whole, if you just, okay, Peter, did you get his email?
He sent an email.
Yeah, he says he gave
in the chat.
In the side chat. Yeah, he put his email in the side chat. I don't get the argument that just because there aren't a whole lot of these fossils, that means it doesn't matter. Like, we can discard them if they don't have more than like 300 fossils or something. I don't get this argument. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's completely meaningless.
Do you have any? Yes, we have these. Oh, do you have more?
Right? Yeah. Well, I will accept no less than 500 of them. Why? Because I say so. Like, what? The other thing that actually the kid
like
did ask
it's like you win rock paper scissors one time and they say like, oh, it's best out of 3, right, and then best out of 4, and then best out of...
right. So the other thing, the one kid did ask a good question actually. So Lucy was, I think 3.2 million years was Lucy, wasn't she? Jamie, correct me on that, but I think she was 3.2 million years was Lucy.
I think about that, yeah.
I think that's correct. So 4 million years was like Auroran, right? Wasn't it? No, actually, I think Australopiths go back to like 4 million years or so. Anyways, yeah. So there are Australopiths like 4 million years ago, and then they lasted up to like, it was like, I think around
3.2 million years is Lucy.
Okay,
yeah.
So I was right. Yeah. So about 4 million years ago, there were Australopiths, and there were also Australopiths about 3 million years ago. The first Homo comes into the record like 2.5 million years ago. That's like Homo habilis, Homo rudolfensis. Whether or not you consider those two different species, I don't really care. And then you get Homo erectus, and then so Homo erectus was around like 2 million years ago. So there were Homo 2 million years ago. Then we know Homo erectus spread into Eurasia, went all over the place. And then about 1 million years ago, you have like the split between what is it, like the common ancestor of like Neanderthals and Denisovans and Homo sapiens that occurred like around 1 million years ago. And then of course you have you have the archaic Homo sapiens. You see them showing up in the record around 300,000 years ago. And then of course anatomically modern Homo shows up around like 60,000 years or so. So we have fossils for all of these time periods. But yes, Immutable Destiny says the argument is if you don't have everything, you have nothing. Yeah, exactly. If we don't have every single individual who ever died, we have no fossils at all. Correct. So actually, yeah, that's a good question. But
and Immutable Destiny, check your email. You have a link.
Yeah. So
I don't know if we can get to that one video. Maybe did we already pass that video before? The one that Immutable is mentioning, like about Abio.
I don't remember talking about it last time.
I don't either. So maybe we will get to it. Hopefully.
Yeah. If we do, yeah, we'll just pause it and then we'll stall for time because we can do that. All right. Well, do you guys want to add anything on this one?
No. I think you got it.
One thing, but that's because I just saw a squirrel. The people can go back. I'm not going to rewind it. The guy on the right, there's no way that hat stays in place by itself. That's either glued on or I don't know.
You think so?
Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
Okay. Yeah.
Artie is significant because we believe she walked
Is that boy?
Based on where her spine enters her skull.
Was the skull complete, like shown in the Science Journal?
Actually, no. They reconstructed it from over 110 bone fragments found over a 30-foot area.
Right. So how did her spine enter her skull from the pieces they found? Because I mean, there's not much to go on there. Did they find any neck vertebrae?
Well, actually, again, no. We have no neck vertebrae.
So let me get this straight. So they have no base of the skull. They guessed
That's not what he
where
said.
the spine entered the skull, and they have no neck vertebrae?
Okay, so that's just abject nonsense. The place
again. He always has the perfect reaction at the end, always.
So the spine enters the skull at a spot called the foramen magnum, and only bipeds, only bipedal walking apes have a foramen magnum that's at, what is it? It's like directly under. It's not at the back of the skull. Chimps have it at the back, but Sahelanthropus, Ardipithecus, I think Auroran, Australopithecus, Homo, we all have it under the skull because we are bipeds. Now, of course,
or at least orthograde. Like it may be that Ardipithecus was like orthograde in the trees often, but yeah,
they're at least facultatively biped. But like, this is one of the like diagnostic characters that, you know, the valgus knee, the shape of the pelvis, the position of the foramen magnum. These are all characters that diagnose bipedal apes. You don't have to have the spine to see that where the spine entered the skull is indicative of a biped, because there are no quadrupedal apes that have that sort of foramen magnum, that position. So, wrong.
And also, didn't we have a hip? I mean,
yeah, you can see the hip up there. You can see it. It's right there in the picture.
Yeah, that basically sold the deal already. Even if you didn't have anything from the skull, from the hip, you could tell that it was a biped.
Yeah, and the funny thing was for Sahelanthropus, its foramen magnum is kind of halfway between like the chimp position at the back and the ape and the human position under. So Sahelanthropus is kind of in the middle. And so there was a debate over, well, is it actually a biped? Is it just facultatively biped? And it turns out a paper came out earlier this year that, yeah, it was actually a biped, or at the very least, it was it did have a facultative bipedality like the other, primitive hominins, based on more bones that they have found of
I haven't seen that paper. Was a paper this year or just last year?
I believe it was this year. It may have been last year, but I think it was this year. But yeah, these papers. The sad thing about these papers, I hate how science keeps moving forward, because like we do, the Ancestor's Tale script, and like as soon as one episode comes out, a paper is like, oh hey, here's this other thing, and then it's like, oh man, we just did that. That actually happened to me with what was it?
Yeah, I think Wikipedia has it mentions one paper from 2020 that says the paper that says it wasn't a biped, but then in 2022 there was a paper that it was a biped.
Okay, it was last year. Okay, gotcha.
So 2022. Yeah. Okay. I can link the paper.
Yes, please do. The funny thing was, so as I was doing research for the Colugo's Tale, I came across a paper on the evolution of eyes, and I was like, oh man, we just did the lemur's tail, and I didn't talk about it, and so because I wasn't aware of that paper, and so then I spent a portion of the script talking about this new paper I just found with the eye stuff. So science moves forward. Darn it, why can't it be like religion where it just stays the same all the time? So
that would be so much easier.
About the lemurs?
Oh, that the did not originate from a Madagascan common ancestor with all the other lemurs.
Oh, so this was a separate rafting, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, so it was based on some previously misidentified. So like it was a new fossil, and then they looked at some previously misidentified fossils, and by doing a phylogenetic analysis on those plus like modern Dobintonia, they were like, oh hey, this shows actually that the originated in Africa and separately rafted to Madagascar, which I think is
Madagascar
really cool.
is basically a very neat place, a welcoming place for the Strepsirrhines. Basically, their only refuge at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think
good on this one.
I think the eye is one of the things that defeats intelligent design, because no, really, because if you really think about it, the middle finger of the eye, why don't humans have one of those? I mean, I thought
you were going to say because they're so ugly.
No, we actually use that middle finger to, I don't know, do things. And for those who have now their mind in the gutter, shame on you. I was talking about pissing people off with a sign made by the middle finger, not something else.
Do we need super long middle fingers for that?
I mean, it would.
You can go grubbing with your giant middle finger. You go like tapping along trees, looking for.
It would be the equivalent of using all caps on the internet, Jax.
I thought all lemurs originated in Lemuria. I don't know about that one. All right, you ready?
Yes.
All right.
I was just saying that it really doesn't matter what you believe from the Bible about the age of the earth. Yes.
Actually, I think it does. See, because it's talking about God's character and about, whether we can even trust the Bible for its word. See, what it says is that God created a perfect world where he told animals and people to only eat plants. And then he told Adam and Eve that if they eat from the forbidden tree, then death would enter the world. They ate, and so death enters the world through pain, bloodshed, suffering, right? So that puts it on us, not on God.
I don't care.
But if you add millions of years, well, then that means that God's very good creation was built upon death, pain, and suffering.
I don't
Ultimately,
care.
many Christians believe that Jesus turned water into wine and that he raised Lazarus up from the dead, but they don't believe God's word whenever he says that he created the world how he did.
I don't care.
If you ask me, I would say that if you want a strong faith with deep roots, then you should trust God's word from the beginning.
Don't care. I mean,
I can skip this one.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah. If you believe in fairy tales, you can believe in even more fairy tales. That's basically what he's saying. So
I guess.
Yeah.
All right, we can keep going.
Well, he's not wrong when it comes to that. If you believe everything,
Well, if you have a literal interpretation, then yes, but you don't necessarily have to. But that's all I have to say. So yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, continue.
Yep.
He looks mad. We need to relieve him of his madness.
This is just a pack of lies.
What are you saying?
No respectable scholars today believe the Bible is accurate or that the resurrection ever happened. Yes?
Actually, a lot of scholars regard the Bible as credible. It's 66 books, written over 2 millennia with 35 different authors in 3 different languages.
What do you mean by credible?
It is incredibly reliable and consistent. We have over 5,000 New Testament manuscripts. And that's more than any ancient text. And these copies are overwhelmingly similar. Matthew, Mark, and John, for instance, they are direct eyewitness testimonies about Jesus' life.
No, most
11 of the 12 disciples died terrible deaths for what they believed about Christ's life and his resurrection.
There's no evidence for most of that.
Nope.
They believed so much that Jesus was who he said he was that they signed their testimonies with their blood.
Nope.
There's no
Who
evidence
would die for a resurrection that never happened?
No one did.
I hadn't thought of
There's
it that
no
way
evidence
before.
that even happened in the first place. So okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
That
care.
never happened. Also, may I point out with his manuscripts, the modern day King James, compared to the oldest Bible we have, over 14,000 conflicting parts in the text, which goes from maybe just one word in a verse that is different to verses meaning the exact opposite, saying the exact opposite of what they say in those 2 Bibles. So no, you and you don't have any originals. Also, you don't have a confirmed number of authors. So basically, this was lying from the get-go. Which
I think it's really silly when they say things like, "Oh, there are thousands of copies of this."
Yeah.
And because there are
show
more
me one
copies,
original.
that makes it more true.
Yeah, show me one original.
I mean,
because the copies.
To come back to Harry Potter.
Yeah, the copies
Harry
all
Potter's
contradict.
More true, the more copies.
Yes. I mean,
the more times you tell a lie, the more true it is.
Yes. Yes.
And also, I'm pretty sure that the Gospels weren't that old, and not.
We should have
they weren't directly written by them, so yeah.
We should have a video of Hovind that we can interject where he says, if you tell a lie long enough and loud enough, people will believe it. Or claims like this.
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway, all right.
We have about 10 minutes, so immutable.
Wait.
Put your
only 10 minutes
pedal
left
on.
in this?
Put your pedal on the metal if you want to be here in time. And if you're going to be here in time, I have something that will screw you up. Never mind. Continue.
Yep.
So, Professor, sorry, back to what you were saying about the whales.
Well, it says here, Darwin believed whales evolved from bears.
Oh my
the
God!
California Academy of Sciences claims they evolved from creatures like hyenas. The Tokyo Institute of Science says it was a hippo-like creature. The University of Michigan says it was like a cat. The Carnegie Museum says it was like a wolf.
Oh my God.
The Melbourne Museum says it was like a deer. And the American Museum of Natural History says it was like a lion.
And you're saying that these hip bones here are evolutionary leftovers whenever the whales would walk on land?
Yes.
The science journal Evolution actually says that those hip bones are reproductive claspers.
Wow.
So they're necessary for joining whales together during
no
mating.
No.
So if that's the case, then these aren't evolutionary leftovers. These are designed for a purpose.
Okay, first of all, so you're Nestlig's right. It's LSS all over again. The joke about like, oh, they said it's like a raccoon, it's like a deer, it's like a hippo. Okay, these are analogies that are being used to try to explain to the public what these ancestors look like. Now, Pachycetus and Indohyus and all these other guys were not raccoons. They weren't hippos. They weren't bears or whatever else. First of all, Darwin did not believe bears evolved into whales. He said he could imagine something like a bear evolving into a whale under a set of naturally selective conditions, which he actually withdrew in later editions of Origin. But the point is, he never believed bears evolved into whales. That was never a thing he maintained at any point.
And also, there's no textbook saying that the hip bone structures are claspers. Those are things found on sharks, not on whales.
So they are claspers in like basilosaurids. Modern whales they don't have the hind limbs. The bones don't jut out far enough to be used as claspers. Yes, it's true in sharks that sharks do use their anal fins as claspers, but or the males do at least. But in whales have not used their hind limbs as claspers since the Eocene. Right? The bones don't jut out of the blubber. So that's not a thing. If he said they're used as like holding pelvic muscles in place, well, yeah, that's true. They do that. They act as a as a attachment point for pelvic muscles, which again, vestigial does not mean that a bone is completely functionless. It's
exactly. Even though they may be used as claspers, we can still see that the basic structure is there, the femur and the other bones. Yeah. So we can still recognize it as a inheritance of the terrestrial ancestry, basically.
Yeah. How did whales evolve so quickly if the first mammal didn't show up until the Eocene? Savage cobra kind of official. Very true. Good point. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that.
We have to ask Steve about that. Yeah.
Right. For anyone who is blissfully uninitiated, Stephen Meyer, one of the fellows of the Discovery Institute, said that the first mammals showed up in the Eocene, neglecting the 100 million years of mammals that existed prior to that. So, Vandalia 1998 for $4.99 says, if these are our science teachers, then we need better training for them in college. I agree. That's true. If science teachers are like this guy, then yes, they would need better education in college. The whole it's like a deer, it's like a hippo. Now the hippo thing is, hippos are the closest extant relatives of whales.
Yes.
Right. They share a whole bunch of genetic homologies. Genetic analyses have firmly rooted hippos as the closest relatives of whales. There were some arguments in like the 90s that maybe hippos are more closely related to pigs, but those have been long resolved.
Yeah.
That hasn't been an issue for like a couple decades now. And every so often you see creationists like saying that, like, oh, evolutionists can't figure out if they're more closely related to pigs. Like, what? No, that hasn't been a thing for a long time.
I want to do shout out.
I'm pretty sure that the aquatic lifestyle of hippos is independent, right? Like the common ancestor was pretty much terrestrial, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. What'd you say, Peter?
I want to do a quick shout out for Who's Your Buddy, channeling his inner Kent Hovind thing. You see, the blue whale has a 15-foot penis, and it uses those bones to mate. I'm here to help. I can hear that in his voice. That's just bad.
Yeah. So this also notice that just like LSS, they didn't actually say anything about the morphology, the actual morphology of the whale ancestors. For anyone who's not aware, the reason that I unilaterally decided we were going to stop interacting with LSS was we made a rebuttal to him that was like half an hour long, and he ignored the first 14 minutes of our rebuttal that were about how we know that pachycetids and ambulocetids and remingtonocetids and all the other guys, all the other early whales are actually cetaceans. The way that we know that by looking at their morphology, he just ignored it. He just skipped right over it.
He tends to like just like skip his old points and then immediately move on to a new point as if it's the same point. He never admits that his all the points were taken down, so he just moves on, like oh well, and like that,
And that made me so mad that I was like, we're done. He's an idiot, and he really isn't worth anyone's time. He's like the lead animator or whatever for the Discovery Institute nowadays.
Yeah, he's now making like a bio videos right now, and I coincidentally I have seen today. I've seen one of them, and it's oh my god, it's.
Well, I mean, he was dishonest in what he was talking about back then with his lies about homology. You know, he's always been dishonest or just ignorant. I don't know.
There's one claim about like his videos are still like they get input from like the professionals at the DI. So there is one argument that they made against the alkaline vent hypothesis. I think you're familiar with it, right? Like the alkaline vents have pH gradients, which is very reminiscent of the basically the proton gradient in our cells that powers ATP synthase, basically.
Okay.
And what the LSS made a point against that by saying that the vents don't put like the pH gradient in the vents don't provide nearly enough energy for life, but that's not the argument for the vent hypothesis. The vent hypothesis, the energy that comes from the reaction with hydrogen and carbon dioxide, it doesn't come from the pH gradients. It's totally not where the position lies. It's a straw man, basically. Yeah.
I mean, this is the same guy who honestly argued multiple times that the platypus is a chimera of multiple animals. That's the same guy, and I will continue to point that out because that's one of the dumbest positions I have ever heard a creationist seriously defend. And then he had the audacity to be like, oh, well, if we can't tell the difference between homology and convergence, oh, then how do we know what's homologous? It's like, have you not been paying attention the whole time?
I noticed there is a very distinct difference. Like when he argues from his own, like without any input, like you get those types of arguments.
Yeah.
But when you see professionally made videos and you see that he gets his like more sophisticated arguments from those from his his bosses, basically. Yeah. From the
because there's no way he was the one making the argument about like which layer the basilosaurid skull was in, even though the arguments were very stupid that he was making.
Yeah.
But they were a little more sophisticated than his normal stupid, you know? So anyway.
You should have seen, I think he like there was one time when he argued with somebody in the live chat, and I think it was immutable too. Like maybe it was somebody else, but it was really funny. Like, oh my god! Like I can send you the link where I recorded in the League of Reason, basically, where I discussed this. Hold on. You can move on in the meantime. So yeah.
Okay. I just want to point one piece of evolution trivia that not a lot of people know. Maybe you know the answer, Jackson. A few years ago, whales proved that alcohol is beneficial to education. Were you aware of this?
I don't know.
Well, if you get Paula Gia drunk, he will ask Jackson Wheat to make a video about whale sex, and then you learn about whale sex. So there's that.
That's true. That is a thing that happened.
See? I have my trivia right.
Can you believe that was like 5 years ago?
Yes.
That happened like 5 years ago is when I made that video. That's insane to me.
Yeah. I mean,
honestly, I have a hard time believing that. If you told me like, if I didn't know any better, I'd think it was like maybe 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That feels right, but I know for a fact it was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So, yikes. Freaking yikes.
And all of the people involved are still doing the same thing they did 5 years ago. Desperately trying to get some science out.
That was back before Shannon Q had her own channel.
Yes.
Okay, so remember she was doing the whole like I have to have 1,000 subscribers before I release my first video. She was doing that. Yeah. And we had her on, and we had her on a couple of times before that. Anyway, all right, let's keep going.
Back then, Shannon Q was a fact checker for Apologia.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, continue.
Yep.
The fossil record proves the evolutionary order of life. Simpler creatures on the bottom, and more complexity as you move up the geologic column.
See, but I think the fossil record better explains the order in which creatures were buried, like in Noah's flood. See, starting at the bottom, the ocean floor, the fountains of the great deep broke open, and thus the marine life in the ocean floor buried. Then, as the flood rose, they go into the shallow waters, and then to the coastal regions, and then to the swamplands, and finally to the mountain regions. Your chart reflects this perfectly.
Well, actually, what I see is we're both looking at the same picture, but there's two different explanations.
Well, true, you may see evolution, but in reality, it's just snapshots of dying creatures being buried underneath flood-deposited layers.
You know, the thing that makes me the most angry about this this particular video is how absolutely inane that argument was, and how arrogant his smile was the whole time he made it. Because the argument that this is like successively burying animals is one of truly the dumbest arguments that creationists make. And in fact, I don't even hear many creationists make this argument anymore just because of how stupid it is. Savage Cobra Kind Officials for $2 says the blue whale, a famous Highland animal. Yes. There's a quote from I think it was on a Talk.Origins post about this specific argument, and it was like, it's really funny to imagine a magnolia like uprooting itself and then running uphill, you know, as the floodwaters rush in. Because that's kind of what you have to have, right? Because there are no angiosperms prior to like the early Cretaceous. There are none in the fossil record prior to the early Cretaceous. And yet, if you go to the beach, you'll find a bunch of angiosperms. You'll find palm trees, which are monocots. You'll find grasses, which are also monocots. You'll find all sorts of wildflowers growing along the grass by the beach. Why? If the flood is a record of,
they are really buoyant.
I guess they're super buoyant. Except they're less buoyant than like
you can use your angiosperm as a flotation device.
All grasses are more buoyant than dinosaurs, but less buoyant than placental mammals. You heard it here first, folks.
The funniest thing is that back in Noah's time, grandmothers that were 80, 90 years old, they could fly better than birds because they lasted longer. They're higher up. But I need to show this because people can't see it. Even the people on the panel can't see it. But we have another person on the panel.
Hello, Immutable.
How's it going?
Who now has to change his name forever. Immutable.
I know. I unmuted.
No, because I have a hacked version of StreamYard, so I can actually mute you, so you're no longer immutable.
Oh,
damn. Got him.
Snap.
That's it. Welcome, Immutable.
Welcome. The other thing I think is so insanely stupid about this argument is, birds are another thing that don't appear until the late Jurassic. You know, somehow the birds, like all the flightless birds, beat all of the amphibians and reptiles, but they couldn't beat, again, like the placental mammals. I don't know how that works. Don't know how that I mean, like, we've been talking in the Ancestors Tale series about all the flightless birds that there are, and somehow they weren't anywhere near
they were outrunning the pterosaurs.
They were outrunning the pterosaurs, the flying pterosaurs. Yep. Somehow they managed that. You know, the other crazy thing is, you know what you don't find with like trilobites? You know, you don't find any mosasaurs.
Penguins fly better than pterosaurs.
Penguins fly better than pterosaurs. Yeah. Somehow you never find mosasaurs with trilobites. You never find blue whales with mosasaurs, which is super weird because, like, if it's all the aquatic creatures at the bottom layers, why is it only some of them? Why are the really big aquatic creatures buried like way higher up in the fossil record? I don't know. That just seems really weird to me. It's like you can find Anomalocaris and trilobites and hallucigenia like way down, but like blue whales, ray fin fish, nah, they gotta go way up to find them for some reason. Again, flounders are a thing. They live on the seafloor. Why don't you find any of them with the other seafloor animals? Crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
well, they floundered.
They floundered. Yeah. What'd you say, Immutable?
Yeah, I mean, I think creationists are mostly concerned like with getting the strata there before they start trying to account for like the biodiversity present within certain layers.
Yeah, you're right. Let's see. RJ and I read a few papers about the whole biodiversity issue, where creationists try to invoke like these geological provinces, which essentially match the geological column, but they're in like different regions around the world, right? So there's a whole forest that's like just Devonian, animals over here, and a whole forest that's just Jurassic animals over here.
So like several thousand Jurassic Parks, like pre-flood.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, was it Kurt? I think it was Kurt Wise who was proposing that.
I like Smitty's comment. Snails to the velociraptors. Sorry, bro, you're not fast enough.
It's creative, if nothing else.
Have you seen Turbo from DreamWorks? Really bad movie.
Really
bad movie.
They went super fast. Yeah, this Richard Dawkins kind of makes fun of this argument in, he does make fun of this argument in Greatest Show on Earth, and it's like, I don't know. I don't think I've met any creationists recently who maintain this. I think most of them are so ill-informed on biodiversity in general that they don't even know the problem exists.
Well, I think that's by design, though, too, because, like, I think the purpose they're getting behind, like, when adopting notions like kind, is because since you're using a term that's like not taxonomically strict, right? You can get around like having to define exactly what things belong to what kind, because there's no defining characteristic for what a kind is.
Oh, and
right?
some
they
animals
can always keep changing.
Some animals are part of one kind, so you have the cat kind and the dog kind, and then the Bible starts babbling about different kinds of birds and sorts of birds. So there are sorts of birds as well. I mean, keeping it vague, but I don't know if anyone noticed, they did have a graphic from Answers in Genesis at the start of this particular part.
I mean,
so
do they try and address things like why certain kinds of dogs, like what is it, there's like one kind of like African dog like that can't breed with any other kind of
there are multiple
any other dog.
There are multiple kinds of dogs that don't interbreed,
not really,
and they're still the same kind.
So there, I think it was Erica who took a picture of the Ark kinds over at the Ark Park, and it's really just a listing of like the taxonomic families from Wikipedia. That's like all it is. They just went through Wikipedia, copied all the different like families and sometimes orders.
Also, includes the Borovagines and the Hesperocyanines.
Don't worry about that. Those guys.
I was just curious because like I know that like even within normal taxonomy, you have situations like where what creationists would consider kinds don't necessarily fulfill like what the Bible says about kinds about being able to reproduce, because some animals, even though they're part of the same like kind of clade, like they're so like genetically divergent from another that they're incompatible to breed with each other.
My favorite example that Dapper and I always give when we debate creationists is the Procambarus virginalis, the marbled crawfish. And so this is a crawfish that underwent an auto polyploidy event, and so it now has an extra set of chromosomes, and so it's parthenogenetic, but it's totally unable to mate with the parent species, Procambarus phallax. And so if you adhere strictly to kind is just that which can, reproduce after itself, whatever. Well, okay, here you have a member of the population who can not mate with a member of the parental population. So are they the same kind? And
Right.
I have had such fun watching creationists like try to wriggle around that one. It's immensely fun.
Yeah, I mean,
it's pretzels.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because like the majority of what I see with them is that they're mostly concerned with it when it comes down to like humans, or when it comes down to like trimming down the number of things you have to fit on the ark.
Right.
That's even granting, you don't have nuclear holocaust, kind of events occurring like once the ark is in motion and stuff like that. So, right. I mean, it's like, okay, even if you grant that, you still have.
I didn't mention the
issues.
dog kind. Sure. He did. The guy on the bottom there did. He mentioned the dog kind. He woke you up.
No. All right, we ready to keep going?
All right.
Sure. Let's see if we can find this Abiogenesis one.
Is the Abio video part of this series or part of something else? Or
it's part of the series.
All right.
Yeah,
okay. I don't think we've come across it yet.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre because like the second one they do isn't really Abio. The first one they do is, and it's just like it's classic. It's classic origins or bust. I mean, that's what the majority of what the majority of creationist arguments have kind of resorted to.
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
Rather than resorting to like primary literature. Here, let me pull them up. Okay. Here's the link to the first one. Where did it go? There we go. Part 1. And part 2. Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see them, see if they do like more full-fledged stuff on Abio, because so far there's only one channel I've seen that kind of is trying to deal with Abiogenesis stuff, and it turns out that channel is like affiliated with the Discovery Institute, so that's that's interesting.
The long story short, the long story short videos. Yeah, he's a. I don't know if you were listening to what we were, but yeah, he's a total hack. We've dealt with him before. Yeah, we've dealt with him on this channel before. We had a couple of back and forths with him. We did Darwin's Confidence Part 1 and 2, which was a response to one of his videos.
3 years ago, I think.
Yeah,
I started 3 years ago.
God, that was a long time. Man,
does anybody know like
before COVID?
Does anybody know his background?
I don't think he has a background in science, at least not from the stuff we've seen. It seems like he did animation. Like, he does animations. His animations are really good, but I think that is his background. I think it's animation.
I think he's just an animator,
Yeah, I think he's just an animator, and he happens to like hobby in intelligent design, and so that's kind of what.
I don't know if he started out on his own channel, and then did like the Discovery Institute like picked him up later, or
I think so. No, because he had his own channel, and he used to post stuff on his own channel, and now he posts stuff on the DI's like official channel. Yeah. So it's kind of like what happened with A Bit of Orange. He got picked up by AIG. So
yeah, I think the Discovery Institute is kind of like providing funding or kind of like monetary gain for like the videos he's doing or something like that. Because from what I can tell, I mean, I don't know if like there's live videos that he has that I just haven't seen. But from what I've seen so far, it just seems like all of his videos kind of like go one for one with the Discovery Institute series on the thing. But he's also kind of like livened up the titles a bit more to make them more clickbaity and more appealing to prospective audiences.
Yeah, we did also like a series of videos on because he did a whale evolution video, he did a video on homology, and we did rebuttals to both of those, and then so it ended up being a whole back and forth.
Yeah, he's done like a 5-part on Abio stuff, which is I've only seen like the most recent one. So that's
the other thing about it is like I hesitate to give him views also because I'm pretty sure he just gets paid to make these videos. I'm certain that he's like getting paid to make rebuttals, and I don't want to be fodder for his paycheck.
I think that's probably a good point. I mean, the thing I worry about is if you compare it to like creationists we've dealt with before, like Otangelo and stuff like that. Yeah, like it's more or less going to be the same kind of thing with creationism, but like you're not dealing with like the appeal that they have now, like with these kind of like quality level animations.
Yeah.
Which are like going to appeal more to people. Plus, I mean, for people like the next generation, it does give people an opportunity to kind of see like what are these people actually representing this correctly? Like if not, like what can we say? Like are there any valid points to like the criticisms they're making against Abio? And if so, we should be honest about it. But if they're not, that's also room for correction. I mean, one thing I've noticed about Abio, and I'll, just give this kind of, like fodder for the creationists, is like, I don't know if you guys, I heard somebody, it was probably Nestlig, mentioning like hydrothermal vents and like its relation to other models that are proposed. It's my opinion that it kind of seems like different parts of abiogenesis research has kind of like, once people have decided where they lie in terms of, oh, we're going to do deep sea hydrothermal vents, oh, we're going to do like some kind of more pond-like setting, they've kind of make up their mind and they dedicate research like to try and like establish plausible models for those hypotheses.
Okay.
Without really informing people about what those hypotheses are. Like, in my view, I mean, it's a little bit hard to find, like literature or like review articles that are kind of surmising what exactly like the modern different views are with abiogenesis, and kind of like their basic postulations and how they're differing from each other. And that's like, unfortunately, that's a really critical distinction to be having, because these models should be making like competitive predictions against each other, and it's very plausible that that they should be incompatible with each other. But if nobody really, like, if everybody has their own pet idea of like what a hydrothermal vent model is versus like a hot spring model or whatever, then the research doesn't have too much like meaning to contribute, well, in terms of its ability to contribute to one hypothesis over another.
Yeah.
Because there's no unifying idea of like what the model represents.
Okay. Well, okay. I see what you're saying.
I also think like you have these different, almost different camps that there is little crosstalk between them. Like the hydrothermal vents tend to stay with each other, and those warm pond or like the wet dry cycle guys tend to stay on their own camp, basically. Yeah. Almost, it's almost like that. Yeah.
I think you're starting to see in the literature a little bit more like kind of crosstalk between fields.
Yeah, there must be more about that. And even though I still favor the hydrothermal vent theories, I still think that they should talk more with each other. You can have disagreements, but it becomes more productive when you interact more. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good idea. Not just for the reason of kind of like edifying science, but also for the reason of kind of like refining like what exactly the model should represent. Because I mean, Dessel pointed it out a little bit ago when we talked, like last time we talked a few months ago. Like there's articles that have been published that illustrate that like people criticizing like certain aspects of like hydrothermal vent model don't understand hydrothermal vent models. And like they're just getting like basic facts wrong about like certain facts like that are understood from literature wrong about it. I mean, you could say that that's part of that is due to like people not clearly defining their field well enough, but also because of this kind of issue that Nestlig pointed out that to some extent people within their respective camps are interested in validating their model, and historically speaking haven't overly been interested in kind of like collaborative efforts or kind of like testing their models against other models to see which is a better explanatory framework.
So, that is all very interesting. I think we should keep going with the video and see if we can come to the one that discusses abio. So we're gonna keep going.
Yeah, there's 2 parts on it. One of them's kind of a little more weird, but
okay.
Part 2 is weird. Part 1's more relevant.
And I can hit the buttons again because I've calmed my dog down, so not going to interfere anymore.
Gotcha.
Okay, continue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, the 6 days of creation in Genesis are just allegorical.
What do you believe God meant to tell the Israelites when he wrote the 4th commandment? Which states, for in 6 days God created the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that's in them. And on the 7th day, he rested. Do you think that he meant 6 days as in 6 days?
Well, in that verse, 6 ordinary days, obviously.
Then I don't know why I should believe any differently.
Even if he created everything in 6 ordinary days, you don't honestly believe humans evolved only thousands of years ago. Humans likely evolved over 100,000 years ago.
Well, Luke 3 lists over 70 generations between Christ and Adam.
Oh my gosh,
then that's also seen in Genesis 5 and 10, so that's about 4,000 years between Christ and Adam, Adam being the first man formed out of dust. So, where do you fit the other 96,000 years into the Bible?
No one cares. I just don't care.
There's a lot of technical issues that...
He literally just said he's like the Bible because the Bible, and I don't care.
Yeah, it's also just taking like very like tacit assumptions about historical record keeping and things of that nature, which are just.
It's also not entirely consistent. Jackson, if I were to talk to you and you would say we can do that a day from now, what time span are we talking about?
If I say we can talk a day from now?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess 24 hours from now?
Okay. Let's say I would ask God the same question. Do you think he would say 24 hours from now in my time? Or would he use his own days, which are apparently longer? So a day for God was 1,000 years is somewhere in the Bible. So why would you talk about 6 literal days? God said he created it in 6 days, so that's at least 6,000 years already. So you're already off by 100% of your whole time issue. And yet,
I mean, I don't really care about these arguments. This one seems kind of silly to me, so we can just keep going.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
Someone asked if you heard about Andrew Cummings says, have you heard about any novel responses to them from creationists?
To like pseudogenes? No, their one argument about pseudogenes is it has a clandestine function, to which I say, all right, prove it. And then they vanish. So that's literally it. That's their whole argument. Like it's all well and good to say maybe it has a function. Maybe it does. Who's to say? Oh, wait, we can actually test the rate at which this gene is transcribed and it's indistinguishable from just noise? Huh. Weird.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could think of like one rebuttal they could say, which is just, maybe it's a gene that we don't yet know the function of.
No, and again, that's fine. Like, if they want to say that, fine, okay, go figure it out. And then they don't, because they're cowards. So.
Yeah, that's easier for them to say it than to buckle up and deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we did discover one novel new argument in our series when we did we talked about the book, and I can't for the life of me recall which one.
The infinite neuron. You're talking about the infinite neuron.
The infinite neuron.
The neuron is infinitely complex. Yeah.
I'm sorry. What?
The neuron is infinitely complex. When we read, I don't have it here. We read a book from 1967. It's Did Man Get Here by Evolution or by Creation? And so we just, we read it like, chapter by chapter. And it said at one point that the neuron is infinitely complex, to which Nestling said, oh, it's a fractal.
That's such a, I mean, my point is going to be slightly different, but like, to take it back to kind of like Sal's stream earlier, I mean, you see creationists throw around this term complexity like so much, and they refer to it as like an absolute kind of term, when it's just I think that's a thing we kind of need to do, like pin them on more, that's just a meaningless and incoherent idea.
You're
Like,
referring to Sal Immutable, the guy who in a debate.
It's
with
Sal, but it's also like every other creationist.
In a debate with Ra said that Noah had molecules on the ark.
So, in reference to that point about complexity being meaningless, I had a debate with, oh gosh, what's his name? The Islamic creationist. It was supposed to be on the Cambrian explosion, but we never talked about the Cambrian explosion because his whole bit was complexity. And we basically just went back and forth over like, well, that doesn't mean anything. Define complexity. And he's like, well, is a trilobite more complex than Dickinsonia? I was like, I don't know. What does complexity mean? And he would just kind of kept doing that over and over. And then I think Nestling and Dapper had a stream afterwards where they basically asked him the same question.
Yeah.
I think you guys kind of hit the point that I want to make, which is that for complexity to be a meaningful like idea, you have to compare two things to each other, right?
Sure.
Like there's no sense in which I can say like like an ion channel is just like so complex it can never evolve or something like that. Because the natural question to ask is like, complex with respect to what?
Right.
It's a point like creationists kind of like duck around because people have an idea of what complexity means. Usually it's just their own standard of what they find to be complex. But it's unfortunately like, unless you make something like where you can say, oh, this thing is complicated, like, oh, a circle is complicated or a sphere is complicated compared to a circle or something like that, right?
It's almost like a similar concept to entropy. Like how much information do you need to describe the micro state if you only know the macro state, basically?
Yeah, I mean, it also gets into this like debate. I mean, I guess kind of like spurred by Maddox about DNA being a code, and it's like, even if there is information in DNA, like sure you could do it by like predominantly like trying to just brute force it and say, oh, it's a function of how many nucleotides are in a genome. That's a very like unusual and bad approximation though, because not all portions of the genome rather, or are transcribed.
Right.
And even those portions that are transcribed, you have spurious transcription and things like that. So it's like there's so much more things that are kind of muddying the water in terms of like genomics and what things get expressed and what things actually turn out to be functionally useful for a cell, that like there is no real clear metric.
So
that's across the scale.
Philosophically, I'm like a pragmatist to the core. I don't care really what definition we use, as long as we pick a definition and we're consistent with it. That's really all I care about. And I don't even think we're at like the definition stage yet, right? It's not even a matter of like comparing two different things. We don't even have a working definition of what complex even means. And so if we're not even at that point, it's like it's just same with kinds, same with genetic entropy, information. All these different words which you can assign meaning to, but I think creationists by design, intelligent design, don't assign them definitions so that they can keep bandying them around. Right. I think it's intentional.
Well, I mean, there's an important lesson to be learned from like areas of biology like developmental biology, which is like a counter to this point of like, oh, you have to have an increase of information to have complexity. No, you don't necessarily, because the way in which like organisms achieve complexity is kind of, by this weird kind of process of shuffling of genetic elements and how those genetic elements regulate one another, right?
And also like a lot of physics, like almost like phase transitions happens during development that lays out the patterns. Like for example, you have what's called the Turing. How how do you call it, the full name, the Turing mechanism, like the process that lays down stripes, which is also involved in how you get 5 fingers. The fingers are a form of stripes, basically. It's really weird, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's this process where, like, despite all the cells in your body having, you know, basically the same genetic information, like the reason like you have different kinds of like phenotypes and cells that exhibit different phenotypes is because of how cells are expressing that information,
right?
You know, in space, like how that information is spatially expressed. You know, not just like the quantity, like of nucleotides you have, and that's a very complicated thing. But
and I'm also reminded of like one of an interview that of one person, one of my favorite persons in the origin of life field. He's called Eric Smith, and in this interview he says that it's a mistake that most people view information only when it comes to the sequence combinatorics of like DNA and RNA. But even though there is so much information in biochemistry alone, like, and then another, like he gives several examples, but I don't remember one specific. Like he gives one specific examples when it comes to the biochemistry that produces the precursors to the nucleotides. That biochemistry is also the same biochemistry as cofactor biochemistry.
Yeah.
Like ATP, GTP, and also many related compounds, cofactors, all of them.
Yeah.
All right.
And I mean, there's other, like, to kind of add to that, like there's another sense in which biological complexity is also weird in the sense where like proteins like kind of have this weird capability, like where, or enzymes at least, let me be more specific, where like they regulate them, like their part of their nature is regulatory by virtue of how they function, right? So I mean, like if you open a textbook on enzyme kinetics and stuff like that, like it'll go into conversations about, you know, like how you model these things, and what you find is like, since the amount of resources that an enzyme can deal with is limited, you know, the way in which like enzymes regulate their activity usually is a product of the thing they're trying to deal with. And so like it's very expected that when you have ensembles of proteins that are kind of collaborating to, you know, build some, you know, end product, that they regulate each other, right? Because they're competing for variations over, you know, very similar substrate.
Okay. Well, this is all very.
I think
we're going to keep going.
We also need to move on. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to keep going.
I'm very curious to what they say about the ABIO stuff. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah, we're not going to finish this one. I think we've got.
That's okay. We can always do it next time. All right, let's keep going.
The Bible's flood account is only a myth.
Oh my God!
Just like the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Well, first Gilgamesh had a 200 square foot boat that would have been tossed around at sea. It took apparently 7 days to build, and then it was a 6-day flood. So that, in comparison with Noah's Ark, which is 500 feet long, 80 feet wide, and 50 feet high, that's a 7-to-1 ratio, and much like the container ships that we know today. It took probably 55, 75 years to build, and it had a year-long flood. God's judgment is just. He even allows 120 years patiently giving people time to repent, saving the last righteous family. These two stories, vastly different, but the Bible is rooted in truth and evidence to support it. Gilgamesh is obviously a fantasy, but however, wouldn't you expect that if there was a worldwide flood, that there would be many flood legends and spin-offs and stories based on it?
Okay, so it's not true, but also, don't you like how it validates us? Like, what? No, stupid. Hold on, guys.
My boat is bigger than yours.
That's very true. Savage Cobra Kind Official for $2 says, my boat is bigger than yours. Yeah. Thank you, Nestle.
Yeah. And on the being tossed around thing, do you think that a box like it's described in the Bible wouldn't be tossed around? No rudder, no sails, no way of getting it in a certain angle towards the waves so it wouldn't sink? Nah.
Yeah.
Also remember importantly, like that to the best of my knowledge, metallurging wasn't a thing back in biblical times.
Correct.
No. And one window to get rid of the methane
totally
gas.
wooden boat.
That would be a fun boat to be on.
Yep. No, it was all nonsense. This is all very silly. They're just saying my mythology is better than your mythology. So
I did want to point out one other little thing too. Like the last thing he said regarding like, oh well, wouldn't you expect like other cultures like to also have like flood legends? That's it's a non sequitur, because this like the history of civilizations tends to be that civilizations settle around bodies of water because it's convenient, right? And when flooding occurs that destroys crops and occasionally buildings and what have you, right? People are going to be devastated by it, and they're going to record those events, right? And they're going to make it, in the province of whatever region. So it's going to be construed as a global flood to the people in that region. Yeah. So even if the global flood occurred, it's not like the fact that it occurred, like, and there being literature of, other quote unquote global floods doesn't really validate like the idea that this particular global flood actually occurred.
Yeah. Even if you had multiple.
On that. First, Dr. Tapioca Weasel, who is a physicist, says the arc would break in half. But also, not all cultures who were present at that time have global flood legends.
Famously,
Chinese,
the Egyptians
have a local flood legend. They have a series of local floods that happened.
Yeah, the Egyptians didn't notice at all. They just went about on their merry business and record everything in a continuous line from before and after the flood. Someone forgot
Stop
to tell
reminding me of like Egyptian mythology, especially like with some of like the Egyptian creation stories of like how gods like birth themselves into existence and shit like that. It's fucking weird.
You mean the one where everything came into existence because of a god masturbating?
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones. And so she's not here now because she probably doesn't get notifications on Twitter because she's not on Twitter. But I'm friends with an Egyptologist, someone who has multiple degrees in that area. And so, yeah.
Trust me, Jackson, when I say it's very graphic.
I believe it.
Yes. We did get a slight reference later on in life from Monty Python, who said every sperm is sacred. That's basically it.
I have seen that one.
Every sperm is sacred. I don't know how to sing it. It's very funny, yes.
Where he's got like 100 kids. They're just all throughout the house. All right, we can keep going.
Okay.
Ew, dead bodies everywhere.
It's a mass graveyard.
That's right. We find millions of dinosaur fossils buried in a stretch of land 1,800 miles long by 1,000 miles wide, and includes 14 states and parts of 3 countries.
What materials were they buried in, and how deep were they?
Sea creatures, freshwater fish, clams, over 400 species of mammals.
Wait, I think I missed something.
120 species, including modern birds like parrots, owls, penguins, ducks,
Peter, can you pause this?
Cormorants, and
Ashbath?
Peter, can you rewind this one? I think I missed something. I think I missed something because I'm very confused. I must have missed something.
No, I don't think you did. I just think
I need to rehear it because I'm trying to figure it out, but I think I missed something important. If you could rewind it, just to
you asked like what are they buried?
What are they buried in? Which is a stupid question.
Okay, well, okay, all right, pause. Or play, play. Okay.
Ew, dead bodies everywhere.
It's a mass graveyard.
That's right. We find millions of dinosaur fossils buried in a stretch of land 1,800 miles long by 1,000 miles wide, and includes 14 states and parts of 3 countries.
What materials were they buried in, and how deep were they?
Sea creatures, freshwater fish, clams, over 400 species of mammals, even 120 species, including Modern birds like parrots, owls, penguins, ducks, loons, albatross, cormorants.
Wait,
and
what?
Okay, so they were buried under megatons of mud, sand, and ash, alongside sea creatures, mammals, and even birds, which they supposedly evolved into. I mean, Noah's flood is sounding like a lot better of an explanation to me.
Wait. Hold on.
There were essentially no details about where this was. Well, he said states. He said states.
States and parts of countries.
There are no parrots and no penguins found in the United States. None. Zero. There have never been, because those are both Gondwanan distributions.
I have a better question.
Okay.
How the fuck do creationists account for things being buried in like ash?
They just don't.
Or like
just kind of ignore
carpets.
it.
There was a really big flood.
When they say,
really big.
yeah, they're like, yeah, the
Immutable.
But like tar pits and stuff like that are due to volcanic activity.
I had a
you're
creationist
just living in
answer that
sin.
question, and they said underwater volcanoes. I'm not kidding.
Yes,
The
boat.
boat.
The aerial
So Noah's
ash.
boat somehow survived a boiling fucking ocean.
Mhm.
You know, that was also depositing
Aerial ash, right? Because this
aerial ash.
right? Because this ash, it was right. This is ash, so it's in the air, and then it lands, right?
No.
And we find the igneous rocks.
The creationist told me it was underwater volcanoes, so that's what made the ash layers underwater. But
You know, that boat must have had a bitch of a time trying to avoid the suit getting into, the one window and suffocating everything.
Don't forget all the asteroids that deposit the ice that would later form the poles.
I know. All those asteroids just happened to, like miss the lucky roulette wheel and didn't hit Noah on his fateful journey, on this year-wide trip on the Ark.
In all fairness, Immutable,
what a fucking coincidence.
God was in charge the whole time, so he probably would have directed the
a meteorite the size of Texas somehow avoided an arc. That's very probable and definitely wouldn't sink or, bulge under the pressure of being in less than ideal conditions for a boat.
Okay, so there's like a parrot in Mexico that is critically endangered.
He also started out mentioning dinosaurs.
Only a parrot? Only a species of parrot?
A single species of parrot. Yeah, native to Mexico. Okay, you're right. He did also say, he mentioned dinosaurs and then said that they must have also evolved, like birds couldn't have lived alongside them because dinosaurs evolved into birds.
It's factually wrong. Yeah.
It's
wrong.
But Jackson, you have to keep in mind the currents. I mean, those penguins could have come from anywhere and just washed up there.
But the penguins, he also mentioned penguins. He said penguins.
Penguins, because penguins would drown in a flood, right? I mean, wait, what?
I mean, duh.
I just dinosaur.
That's a good question, though. Where do creationists? How do creationists think things like Antarctica or like the polar ice caps formed?
Oh, they don't. They just don't. They don't think about
I just told you.
It was a
ice from the asteroids. Just ask Kent Hovind. Ice from the asteroids.
Oh, that's right. There were two giant asteroids, and all their ice got deposited on the top and on like the North Pole and the South Pole, but nowhere else.
And parts of
the whole Earth
and parts of the firmament, which was also made out of ice, also landed there.
Yes.
So it broke apart and then it somehow fell to the sides. I have no clue.
Okay, you know what? I'll give you creativity on that one, and I'll give Kent an even better idea. Just say that the whole Earth, like, it froze over, right? The entire fucking thing. Nothing went extinct. Don't ask me how. And after a long fucking time, everything thawed out except for the North and South Poles. And
he says
Antarctica.
that. He says that the Ice Age was just a few hundred years after the flood.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Why wouldn't it be? I mean, it's not like you have oceans that are still, that are still getting rid of, immense tons of heat, and you wouldn't be able to have ice sublime. Yeah, sure, that's totally
the problem
reasonable.
is
and
you're
don't
trying
you know,
to think about this logically. That's the first issue.
Don't you know immutable?
I'm just not
immutable.
enough of a believer.
Don't you know that when the Ice Age happened, just right a few hundred years after the flood, people just like the Bible would just tell each other the stories of the Ice Age, and that's how we got the movies. They're all based on.
I know.
So do you want to know something that's extremely funny about Kent Hovind's Ice Age beliefs?
Everything.
It's like, yeah, but specifically, he has an option to say like the mammoths died during the Ice Age, right? He could just say that. I mean, who cares, right? At this point, everything is absolute nonsense, so why not? But
no, be counterintuitive, but sure.
No, Hovind is dying on the hill that not only did mammoths not die during the Ice Age, they weren't even Arctic animals. They were even.
Wait.
They were not even cold weather animals. No, I debated him and I asked him in person why he thought that, because I watched So
how does he explain the fact that we found mammoths like buried in like fucking permafrost?
No, it gets better than that. Because I watched a talk that he did years ago, and he says mammoths were not Arctic animals, and I was just obviously flabbergasted, just like you. I was like, what the frick? Why? And so I asked him when I had a debate with him on the global flood. I asked him, I said, why do you think mammoths were not Arctic animals? And he said, well, they didn't have sebaceous glands. So all of 10 seconds I took to look up mammoth sebaceous glands. And surely enough, mammoths found with sebaceous glands intact, because they're mammals and they have sebaceous glands. So big, huge shock.
And he's also said that they were found with.
I read it to him. I read that paper to him, and he didn't respond to it.
He also claimed that mammoths were found with tropical flowers still in their mouth. So that's another claim.
Wrong.
And the fact that they were found in the permafrost. No. The fact that they were found in the permafrost is because that was back then still a tropical climate, and because of the firmament coming down and the asteroids depositing ice, that flash froze the mammoths standing up, which is how we find them. So he did think of it. He did. Yeah, he had a cool story to back it up.
I'm sure.
You had meteorites that selectively targeted mammoths.
Yes.
They didn't necessarily cause the plant life to go extinct. Okay, yeah, and sure. Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna go full retard, all bets are off. Sure.
I mean, why stop now? We're already behind.
I could give you a better explanation for this just going bullshit. Like, I could just tell you, look, mammoths had too much fucking hair, so they couldn't breastfeed their young after, God knows how many years due to genetic entropy. And, if that's not the case, then humans just hunted them to death because they're so fucking woolly and they needed to, protect their tribe. So
No. That all makes too much sense. It has to be the absolute lamest and dumbest explanation possible. Like, it's not possible for him to have a logical explanation. It has to be the stupidest explanation he can come up with.
Just go with something basic, guys. Like, breastfeeding exists with mammals, at least as far as I know. So, like, think logically.
So on Twitter, there's a creationist. I think RJ tagged me on this. No, RJ didn't. Somebody else tagged RJ and me. And this creationist is saying that the Younger Dryas event was when the global flood happened. And I said, the Younger Dryas event, the event that is named for a cold weather terrestrial plant whose fossils are abundant during that time period. That's when you think the global flood happened. The time period named for a terrestrial plant. Okay. All right. You gotta love it. Like, why? Why can't you do anything even remotely like logical? Why does it have to be always the stupidest thing?
It's worse than that, though, because, like, right when you think creationists have found, like, the world's stupidest explanation for, like, how stupid of an explanation you can get, they manage to top it.
That's true.
And I don't know, like, if that's a talent or, like, and if so, like, what do I need to pay to, like, capitalize on that and like pitch it to Hollywood. Because man, you can't write comedy this good. Like
like in their basement they have one of those like cork boards with like the tacks and the sticky notes and the rubber bands to everything and stuff.
Well,
they have those. Like
I did have to restrain myself last week because Kent Hovind posted a video where he was looking for someone like me. Do you know? I forgot the name. The guy with the tectonic plate theory that Hovind's likes to.
Hydrothermal. Which one? The Walt?
Yes.
Catastrophic plate tectonics?
Walt Brown. He wants an artist to recreate the Walt Brown videos for him in a higher quality because he wants to use that on his channel. And I honestly, I did think of replying and just sending him some work that I've done and see if I could get a cash advance for a video. But I thought, nah,
you could say you got paid by Kent Hovind.
That would be the creationist thing to do, to just rip him off and then not get him a product. But it was. I did think about it.
I think the next video is the one of the Abio videos.
Really? Because
Thank God. I was having too much fun thinking about how they're gonna alternative explanations that make more sense.
I see in the playlist we have already passed one of the Abio videos, but the next will be the second Abio.
Well, okay. Look, here's the thing. We have 8 minutes until the show ends.
Here's the thing. Really?
We can extend it.
Did you watch?
Listen.
Have you watched Arn Ra recently? Here's the thing: is a horrible thing to say because he had 2 creationists on.
Listen.
Oh boy.
Here's the thing.
We could also, however, additionally, we could also just do it next week. We could start with this next week.
Let's just start and give the audience a teaser for the.
Sure. Yeah.
For like other Abio content, maybe.
We can do. Watch it now, give them the spark, points, and then maybe come back to next time.
Yeah, or we could just do a cliffhanger because you joined because this was something special, Immutable. So now we have to make sure that you're here next week. So
all of us are special, Peter. We all know this.
I'm the most special. You know that. But
I know, Peter. I'm very aware.
No, but so if we do it next week, if we do it next week, we've got a great cliffhanger for people to come back and see what the fuss was all about. Why you joined?
That's
true. Just throwing it out there.
If you're willing to come back next week with us and do this one, would that be possible for you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm trying to get a few things sorted out, like regarding school and academics. But yeah, sure.
I got your email address, so I can just shoot you the link. That's no problem.
Yeah, and in private chat after stream, I'll post my Discord tag. So,
and I believe that we already passed one Abio video. So Peter, can you perhaps pull up both Abio videos for next time in a separate video file, maybe, or?
That's if we did that, then we could go over both of them.
I just realized that I have been pretty lazy because in these videos you have the TV in the back. What I could have done is just put one of Jackson's shows in there. So while this is playing, they're watching one of Jackson's videos on screen. But I need more time to mess with people.
That's okay. Okay. Well.
So next week.
So that's what we're gonna do next. Is next week we'll start with that. If we could have Immutable back as a guest. If you want to join us for that, and then you can take lead on that clip if you would like.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
That's amenable to you. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll check if there are multiple.
You guys want to go through one more of these shorts, or do we not have time?
We got 5 minutes till the show ends, so I was gonna. This is usually when I say, "What do you guys have coming up on your channels? You know, what's coming up in the near future for you guys?" And then we cut it. I'm usually pretty good about hitting 2 hours. We're usually pretty good about that.
Okay, so
what's coming up for you guys?
I'll start off.
Okay.
I'm still thinking about having the guy on who claims that Satan talked to him in a Harry Potter movie through the snake in the intro of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I'm not sure if. So I asked Lilith to be my co-host. Lilith isn't really sure about this, so I might get another co-host in. I'm not entirely sure. I still don't know what to do with it. Then we've got Creationists coming back with their topic of choice, which we still have to plan. And then we've got a Muslim coming back who thinks that what was it? 7 heavens actually means 7 planets. And he thinks that the moon and the sun are planets. So that's also a fun thing to do. And then on Saturday, we have our Blasphemers Bible on our Rosh channel, where we read the Bible. On Sunday, we do the exact same thing with the Book of Mormon, the Book of Mormon.
Book of Mormon, same thing.
Yes. And then on Monday, and Arn hasn't announced it yet, so don't tell anyone that I told you. On Monday, 10 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Central, Arn will have Jerry Coyne on his channel.
Nice.
And that's another show
Nice.
I get to produce. So I get to meet all the cool people.
Ooh.
Get to be part of the Cool Kids Club.
Yes.
That's true. What about you, Nestle? You got anything coming up?
Nothing in particular, but I just want to mention that I also mentioned this before. Like, I've been reading a new Abio book, and it's called perhaps Immutable is also interested in that, and it's called, let's see, what's the title?
Transformers?
No, the other one. Like a newer one.
Oh, okay.
Spontaneous Order and the Origin of Life by Stephen Bradman.
Okay.
Interesting.
And it heavily borrows from another book, that I also mentioned before with Immutable. It's the by Eric Smith and Harold Morowitz, the Origin and Nature of Life, the Emergence of the Fourth Geosphere. And that older book is a very technical, very detailed, very difficult to read. But this new
I got
book,
a page and started seeing physics shit, and I'm like, oh boy,
yeah,
this is going to be one of those kind of books.
Yeah, like the Eric Smith and Harold Morowitz is like, how many pages? It's like 500 pages long, and not small pages, like a full textbook size book. But this newer book by Stephen Bradman, it's a more condensed and more layman friendly version of that, basically. And it's a very good book.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of those books, even for people like me who do know a fair bit of mathematics, it's like, oh boy, yep, this is gonna take a while.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally fair. What about you, Immutable? You got anything coming up?
Not really. My summer's a little bit too busy. Have a few things kind of like planned just personally. I have been throwing around a few ideas like for what I might want to do at the channel, but unfortunately, like some of the stuff I want to do, I don't really have the funding to do it yet, and I haven't also thought about like how to structure things.
That's understandable.
I can also perhaps for the next time I can perhaps like look up a few recent papers that we can also like discuss during our maybe we can make like an Abiogenesis discussion next time too.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
One thing I've discovered that's kind of really useful is like, I'll use Demeter as an example. So Demeter's like initial paper for the stuff he's contributed to Abiogenesis, a really good way to kind of see like where like what people think and where things are kind of settling is Google Scholar has kind of adopted this process of like of showing this cited by function.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it will list like articles that have used whatever paper you're currently on as their like as a citation for the paper like that it's bringing up. And that's actually really good because you can kind of see like, okay, here's 20 papers and like 15 of them are mentioning, hydrothermal vent theory rather than, this or that or whatever.
Right. Yeah,
so
that
it's
is a
really
super
good
useful
tool.
function. Yeah, you're right. I love that. I do it for video scripts a lot of times. If I find an older paper, I'll be like, all right, who cited it more recently? Is it still being cited? Is it just being flipped off? That sort of stuff. So yeah, definitely. on this channel, we've got the elephant bird's tale coming out pretty soon. We did the dodo's tale recently, and our first short, which was courtesy of Nestlig. So
yes, and I think like the short got like 200 plus views.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the main video got also like a bit higher than the previous video. But of course, I'm not sure if it's due to the short. Like, did you notice anything like some people say, "Oh, I saw your short and now I'm subscribed" or something like that? I don't know if you saw that.
It seemed so. Even though the short didn't get very many views, it seemed like the dodo's tale got up to 400 faster than normal. Like it passed the peacock's tail by a little bit, but it did it quickly, right? And so I don't know if that may have been because of the short. I don't really know, but it did jump up there faster. It certainly seemed like, in my opinion.
Like if you want, I can do like a few slides for another short for the elephant bird tale. If you want to do it.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. We can do one. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Or if we want to do ones for other tales, I'm fine with that too. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Well, there are a lot of tales. So yeah,
there are. I think it's
what I would
60,
suggest
60 or 61, something like that.
What I would suggest, if you do that, you need to make the short after the actual show, and then link.
That's what we did.
And then link the actual show in the description of the short.
That's what we did. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. Well, we're just past the hour. So thank everybody. Thank you guys for coming. I enjoyed it. I hope to see all of you next Thursday, and we'll talk about some Abiogenesis stuff. So that should be fun.
Yep.
Thank you everybody in the live chat for coming. And we will see all of you next week. So bye everybody.
Take care.
Bye everyone.